And the outcome of the much-awaited election petition ruling, which called for rejection of voting without biometric as an illegality and calling for the annulment of votes in all polling stations, has raised some eyebrows.
Comply with the Constitution itself. The Constitution says that you have to be registered to vote.
Yes.
Which means that if your name is on the register of voters, you are entitled to vote. So where does biometric come in? That becomes an issue, you see.
This is a plausible suggestion. Should we scrap the biometric verification law and go by what we originally know? What will be the implications? This is today's big story. My name is Bright Nana Amfo. Now, one of the issues the petitioners of the historic 2012 election petition raised was the fact that one of the things that led to President Mahama's win was that some people voted without being verified by the biometric verification machine, an act they maintain is illegal and could promote double voting. The petition was, however, thrown out on the basis that it shows contrary evidence. As a result, many are suggesting the Public Elections Regulation, also known as CI 75, should be re-examined. The constitutional instrument was passed in 2012 to strengthen the country's electoral system and give legal backing to biometric registration and verification system, which was used in the 2012 presidential and parliamentary elections. Retired Supreme Court Judge Justice V.C. R.A.C. Crabb believes it is important to understand how far CI 75 complied with the Constitution with regards to voting. He recalled that the extent of CI 75's compliance with the Constitution in the December 2012 polls became an issue during the recently dismissed election petition.
The next thing is for us to look at CI 75.
Yeah.
How far does it comply with the Constitution itself? The Constitution says that you have to be registered to vote.
Yes.
Which means that if your name is on the register of voters, you are entitled to vote. So where does biometric come in? That becomes an issue, you see. So we have to look at CI 75 and see how far it complies with the law. But for me, an important aspect, which nobody seems to be talking about, is when the provisional register comes out. What do we do about it?
Now, a few others have also raised concerns. Governance expert Kwesi Efiebedu says the Electoral Commission's creation of the no biometric verification, no vote regulation was an error in judgment. According to Mr. Efiebedu, even the political parties have considered that the regulation contained the constitutional instrument CI 75, which was passed by Parliament last year, was problematic and must therefore be reviewed. We're waiting for the new Patriotic Party suggestions on the electoral reforms, and we'll let you in on that. But in the meantime, we have been heard of the Director of Public Affairs of the Electoral Commission, and he will be speaking to us very soon to let us in on exactly what is happening at the moment. So quickly, let's take some messages on the issue, and we'll come back and deal with the issue of no verification, no voting.
CI 75 obviously needs to be reviewed. It was so clear, even before the elections, that CI 75 could bring problem. And I believe that the right of the voter is paramount. That is why the chapter 7 on representation of the people starts with Article 42. It talks of the right of the voter. Before you come and look at Electoral Commission in 43 and you look at political parties in 55, you know, there are reasons why we have this. It's the supremacy of the right of the voter. Now, going with a kind of legislation that says that you are subjecting my voting right to a technology was problematic. And let me give you the absurdity. One example that will show the absurdity of subjecting voting right to that technology.
Okay.
You see, one absurdity, you know, would have been Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo or His Excellency President John Mahama getting to a polling station and being rejected by that device. Not because they're more important than us. The absurdity is that before they became candidates, just like parliamentary candidates, filing their nomination, yes, a cross-check that they were registered voters.
The call for reforms means Theodore J Blair is the head of the Director of Public Affairs at the Center for Democratic Development. Now, Theodore, great to have you here. Now, the call for reforms of our electoral laws is on, and a lot of issues being bandied about. First of all, let me pick your brains on this. The call for electoral reforms, how would you react to it?
Well, I think it is most welcome because coming at the heels of the election petition, all Ghanaians should be happy that at least we have the chance to reform areas in the electoral system that requires some modification to ensure that the system functions properly. In fact, CDD, and for that matter, since 2000, has been making progressive proposals over the years, to help the EC to reform, its systems and procedures. Some of them they have heeded to, others, I'm sure because of financial constraints they haven't. But this election problem really gives the EC the opportunity to even widen the scope, do some dialoguing of all the stakeholders that are involved in the matter, and then do some budgeting that can really address some of the most specific, areas that are prominent.
Would you be able to pinpoint particularly areas that you think we need reforms? Because
there are a lot of areas.
The EC Electoral Commission, for instance, is asking political parties to submit proposals. Which areas, for instance, if CDD gets the opportunity, would you call for reforms?
Well, I am not in the office right now, so I'm not able to give you all the list, but on the top of my head.
Right.
One of the areas that is critical, for example, is election financing. The financing of campaigns, for example. That's an area that is quite late. You know that...
Are you talking about funding political parties?
Yes.
Right.
Funding, how they receive their funding. How they get money to do their campaigns. And you know that the law requires that they actually stipulate, they go to the EC sources of their funding.
Right.
They are unable to do this. And the EC is unable to hold them accountable for it, for all kinds of reasons. That is one area. So you have the parties receiving money from all kinds of places.
Theodore, so you believe that the law is there. What is left is its implementation.
For that particular one is the implementation. Is the EC coming to the point where it is strong enough to require that the parties comply with the law? Now, what the EC will tell you is that, well, first of all, we don't have offices in every town or village in Ghana. Number two, we don't want to kill the parties. We want them all to flourish and work. And so they give all kinds of reasons why they're unable to, to ensure that the parties comply.
Right. Theodore, kindly hold the line for me. Let me speak to the managing editor of the Daily Dispatch, Mr. Van Etten. He just joined this discussion. Now, Mr. Van Etten, thanks so much for your time. Now, the call for electoral reforms. I've just been speaking to the head of public affairs of the Center for Democratic Development, who thinks that there are so many areas that we need to work on at reforming our electoral system. How would you react to it?
First and foremost, I think that I would like to put on record that after every election, and like Theodore would say, we've had electoral reforms.
Right.
So it is not new that you are having electoral reforms. The only difference is that the agency has become about and everybody is crying electoral reforms. Those who voted in 1992 did not vote in a transparent ballot box.
Right.
I agree with you, Theodore. For example, if you are talking about biometric voting, why did the Council for the Petitioners refuse the EC's attempt to print out to show that everybody voted in those polling stations? I think that one of the biggest electoral reforms that personally I like to see is a curb on the power of the presiding officer. Even though it is 5-4, the 4 justices who supported the petitioners are in effect saying that in 2016, if 2,000 of the 26,000 presiding officers do not sign their coalition sheet, 2 million votes should be disenfranchised. I believe that we have a system where presiding officers can be checked by polling agents, and polling agents can also be checked by presiding officers.
Now, one other area that Mr. Theodore J Blair is talking about, and which he thinks is key, is funding of political parties. He says, for instance, that the Electoral Commission is unable to punish parties that have for several years failed to submit their accounts, and he thinks it is worrying.
It is not. I don't think that the submission punishing political parties, I think, is the core of the issue. If you look at today's dispatch, an article I wrote on March 24, 2011, a paragraph states, and I'm quoting, a political party which sends a polling agent who cannot read well or do a simple addition is not serious. That political party should not blame the Electoral Commission for any electoral irregularities which occur at any of the more than 22,000 polling stations during elections. End of quote. And now what I'm trying to imply, that it is far easier for political parties to train their agents a year to elections. It is easier for NDC and the NPP, given the number of people who vote for them, to get middle-class persons who would be able to tell a presiding officer who is illiterate by chance and is there, and who writes 27-0 to represent 270, than for them to also sign the document agreeing that 27-0 means 270.
Let me, Mr. Van Etten, hold on. Let me go back to Theodore J Blair. Now, one of the issues in contention, Theodore, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Right, sorry, I've lost Mr. Van Etten. But one of the issues that you were raising is about the issue of funding political parties. And I was suggesting that is it not the fact that the EC is unable to punish these parties, but the law is there?
Yes, I mean, the EC is unable to get compliance from the parties. And normally, if you are unable to enforce a particular mandate that you have, you want to work around it. You want to find out what the problem is. If it has to do with administrative issues, which is coming from your side, then you correct it. If it's a question of the parties having specific issues that is preventing them from accounting, then of course you work with the parties to arrest the problem. But to pretend that the problem does not exist, and so things continue the way they have been all these years, will not really work out for an effective, electoral administration.
In several instances, we've been told that the smaller parties have actually submitted the accounts. Is there two major political parties that are the recalcitrant ones? And
so that is why the EC should be up and doing and do extra work in that area. Because, I mean, once they are the body that is mandated to require compliance from the parties, they should be able to do it. If they are having problems, they are having difficulties, they should go back to the law. So portions are reformed, portions are amended to ensure that it's compliant.
Some argue that the call for electoral reforms is not new. I'm sure you heard Mr. Van Etten just said it, and that after every election we had gone through some reforms. And I mean, he mentioned 92 when we had to vote without transparent boxes, we had to vote without colored pictures. We have progressed, and so the call for reforms is not anything new.
Well, it's always been there. I mean, like I said in my earlier responses, I said that even Kudil from 2000 has been providing various, proposals for reform. It's just that because of financial constraints, the EC is unable to, reform every single thing that requires reformation. But the election petition case has really brought the whole thing back to the fore, especially when it comes to the training of polling officials, for example.
Right.
That's an area that really, has let the EC down over the years. So,
and you don't think that the concerns also being raised that a presiding officer who is just too powerful is also not good for our electoral system? You don't agree to that?
Well, he needs to be powerful to be able to do his work properly.
And so he can hold the electorate to ransom.
It is not being overpowerful. But he should be strong enough to be able to ensure that those who are working with him work according to the rules. If he is just there without any mandate, without any authority to supervise, he probably wouldn't have the kind of election that we will all be happy about.
Now, currently, what we have by the ruling of the Supreme Court, if I am right, it means that a presiding officer's decision not to sign the forms does not invalidate the process. How do you think this will affect the whole electoral system, or should it affect the whole electoral system?
Well, I don't think it should affect it too much. As far as the system continues to be transparent in all the polling stations, as far as the party agents also come there to ensure that they observe the processes, as far as the public is also invited to at least play a part in the counting. It shouldn't be too hard if, and of course, with the election petition case now having been heard and the verdict given, I'm sure that every presiding officer will do the right thing. If you spend all the time to go and sit down there to supervise elections, you go through the counting and everything, and all that you require to do is to just append a signature. That shouldn't be too difficult for anybody who wants to be president. So moving forward, I don't see that becoming a problem.
Do you think the concerns being raised again, for instance, Mr. Kwesi Bedu says that the issue of no verification, no voting was an error in judgment. What do you think? Well,
that is, I'm sure he's entitled to his opinion.
Right.
But for those of us who work with these think tanks, we believe that once the Supreme Court has spoken, that is effective. If there's no agreement to what they say, you seek a review. But until that is solved, what they have declared stands. It doesn't matter what opinion some of us don't also agree, but once the Supreme Court has spoken, that is the final until it is changed. It doesn't mean that those who agree cannot speak their mind.
Right, Theodore, I will let you go in a moment, but let me quickly speak to a couple of people who spoke to us about this very particular issue of electoral reforms. I'll come back to you in a moment.
Personally, I didn't get any challenge, but then I heard there were a lot of challenges.
Well, there was some one or two sayings around that, oh, the verification machine was having a problem and stuff, but then at my end, no.
No, there was no any challenge. I didn't face any challenges. Yeah, I heard there are some areas where they face a lot of challenges. But I think at the end of the day, in everything, this is the first time that we are voting through biometric, and there are bound to be challenges. So if there are bound to challenge, I think next time there must be a reform. They have to do something about it.
Okay, actually, in our place, we didn't have any challenges. In a particular place, I voted, but we didn't have any challenge on that place. So I think that place is so cool. You understand? I heard it. One of my friends, the police station, I heard there's a notification going on about the challenges because one of the certain man said the machine can access his fingerprints and a lot of issues. But in a particular place, we did not have any challenge over that.
I don't think so. You know, as a country, we are developing, but even human beings, we develop and we want to progress and go ahead. So I think as a country, we don't have to stop using it. We should use it. The only thing is that we should just put checks in place to make sure that there's no further problems because, you know, a lot of people had problems. You know, these political parties, politicians as a whole, there are a lot of problems. So we should just solve those problems and move ahead. If it means buying new machines, if it means bringing new softwares to identify people's hands and stuff like that, we should do whatever it takes.
I don't agree with them. Well, it should be done. It should be done. Because it's going to kind of make the transparency more fair or something.
To me, if still we use different method or old method, now the problem we have is all the agent police station, you understand? If they introduce new one, still they need someone who is supposed to sign on it.
Right, so views of the public on exactly what happened during the 2012 elections. Some said they faced challenges, others said, well, it was a smooth process. Now, Theodore J Blair is still on the line. Now, Theodore, let me quickly get you on this. Now, the Electoral Commission is asking that political parties submit proposals. Now, let's talk about civil society organizations. What inputs, what role would they have to play here? Well, I've lost Theodore J Blair as head of public affairs of the Center for Democratic Development. We've been talking about electoral reforms and concerns being raised by civil society as well as political parties. The Electoral Commission is asking political parties to send in proposals to reform the electoral process. It says by the end of November, these proposals should reach the Electoral Commission, hoping that they would be looked at. And of course, civil society has already begun the issue, discussing it, debating, and throwing it out to the public to make input as to what exactly reforms that is needed. And we'll be talking to more people about it. But Mr. Efriye Bedu, for instance, of the CAB governance, he's been talking about the fact that political parties have considered there were difficulties, and so they need to reform the system to ensure we have a smooth election in 2016. Don't also forget that some other concern is that for every election since '92, after every major political election, we have had reforms. And so they talk about the move from the boxes that were not transparent to transparent ones, the use of colored pictures, and even the fact that in some cases those in the cities voted with ID cards while those in the rural communities did not vote. And so we'll be getting you more on this particular issue. But I'm told that Mr. Theodore J Blair is back on the line. Now, Theodore, sorry we lost you before we wrap up. Now, the EC is asking parties to get proposals to it as far as reforming the system is concerned. Now, let's look at civil society. What role, how crucial, critical is our role in this particular decision to reform the electoral system?
I didn't get a question. How critical is what?
The role of civil society.
Well, I think it's critical. The parties are, if you like, the key stakeholders, but the civil society groups and even the voters for that matter are also important because we are the ones who vote. And if this country is burning, it's not the politicians alone who will run away.
Right.
Some of them will not even run away.
Right.
They have all that it takes to be here.
Right.
We are the ones who really have the power. We should call the shot.
Right. Theodore, thanks so much for speaking to me. I have to end it this way, but let me stay on the phone lines. Now, Ms Saviano is the Principal Public Relations Officer of the Electoral Commission. She just joined me on this discussion. Ms Saviano, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Now, the EC is asking political parties to get in proposals as far as this electoral reform is concerned. Can you tell me what exactly is the EC looking at?
Oh, thank you very much. Good evening to your listeners.
Right.
Basically, the Electoral Commission has opened a door.
Right.
To the main stakeholders, our main stakeholders, who are the political parties, to bring proposals, ideas, and so on and so forth. The view to reforming the electoral process.
And is this a regular, normal process after every election, or it is as a result of the election petition hearing?
This is something that we've been doing over the years. Since 1990, we've had so many reforms. And I think that this is not the first time.
Right. What has been the input? How successful would you describe the inputs of political parties in previous years that the EC had called for reforms after every election?
Oh, their input have been very beneficial to the electoral reforms. Remember when we used to have opaque ballot boxes? Now we have transparent ballot boxes. So the contribution of political parties has gone a long way to help the electoral success. Remember that IPAC is also there, though it's a non-statutory body. Ideas at IPAC have really helped the success.
And would you, for instance, how would you react to the concerns that IPAC simply it doesn't have the power to cause the Electoral Commission to? I'm asking that how would you react to the fact or the concern being raised that IPAC does not have the power to compel the Electoral Commission to do A or B, and that is simply an advisory body? Hello, Madam Saviano.
Yes, I'm here.
I'm asking that the concerns being raised is that IPAC is simply an advisory body, and that it doesn't have the power to compel the Electoral Commission to behave A or B.
Yeah, in as much as it's a non-statutory body, most of the ideas, at the various IPAC meetings have been used by the Electoral Commission. When there is brainstorming, a lot of issues come up. And after each exercise, IPAC brainstorms and then the Electoral Commission, based on the kind of arguments that come up.
Right, let's
that come out of the IPAC meeting, the Electoral Commission is able to make it informed choices, and as a result, our laws are reformed sometimes.
Right, let's end it here. Madam Saviano, thanks so much for speaking to me, the Principal Public Relations Officer of the Electoral Commission, talking to me there about the call for electoral reforms. And of course, thank you so much for those of you who've been following today's big story. The discussion will linger on the call for reform of the Electoral Commission. Don't forget that the other segment of the show, JN Interactive, will be on right after this. My name is Bright Nanamfo. I'm not gone yet. I'll be back on the other side. Stay with us.